Hello.
Yes, this should absolutely be
Hey.
called the toll booth. I love it. This is the toll booth right here. This is you have to listen. You have to listen. You have to pay the toll, and the toll is listening. Like this is what a great name.
Yeah, so I forgot to set up a spaces and then I was really rapidly as I'm driving thinking, okay, what do I name it? And the toll booth concept is a very fascinating one. So it just only made sense to make it about the toll booth.
Yes, this is perfect. So, well, if you're driving, then first I want to talk about. You said go more into a masculine aspects of, I guess, masculine and feminine energy. So there's something extremely important out there, which makes a huge difference in the worldview perspective of people, which is masculine energy actually lunar in nature. So most people think that masculine energy is solar in nature, and that's not the case. It's lunar. Jesus was a lunar deity or entity, not a solar entity. I talked around it, but I forgot to just like bring it into this an easy to understand thing. So again, about this particular entity, Zeus, evil Jesus, whatever you call him, trying to be in feminine energy. Why would he want to be in feminine energy? Feminine energy is very constant, it's very stable. It's even though a lot of females are unstable, that's because they're not really in feminine energy. Once a female gets in feminine energy, it's a very stable energy. Men typically are also trying to be in female energy, which is more stable, but really men are not necessarily hardwired for that. So when I was talking last week about the north node and the north node and the south node are both related to the moon. And so the north node of the moon is the point of the moon that's pointed basically towards the sun. And the south node of the moon is the point that's basically pointing away from the sun or away from the earth, depending on what you put in the center of the solar system, which is up for debate. So, but the north node is pointing towards the earth or the sun, and the south node is pointing away from the earth or the sun. So, what happens is when people get into their south node energy, men especially get into their south node energy, they're more in tune with what is going on the actual planet, and they kind of focus in on that. So, this whole like sort of like random push towards like saying everyone has these different forms of autism and ADHD. That's really like a man being like in their south node energy, and able to hyper focus on a particular task and not be interrupted by other stuff that's really not relevant to the task that they're trying to complete. That's the kind of energy that men are supposed to be in. Um, and this is very uncomfortable for women who are not in their north node energy, but instead are also kind of in this south node energy where they just only want to focus on one task. And that's not really how women are supposed to be contemplating the big picture and setting the big plays up for certain things to happen and really dreaming the big dream so that the man can find the thing that he can contribute to that and do that particular point. It should be an intersection of energies. But what happens is most of the time, one person or both person are not in the proper energy. So why is it important to understand that masculine energy is lunar energy? Look at the phases of the moon. Men, especially since they don't bleed like women do, they really have to line up with the energy of the moons. It's extremely important for them to be paying attention to the moons. These moons have an extreme effect on men. They have an effect on women too, but it's not quite the same because since we're on the north side of the moon, the part that's away from the moon, basically we are actually the node symbol is it's a horseshoe in reverse. So we're gathering the energy that's coming in from the sun. I'll just use the sun. We're gathering the energy that's coming in from the sun and utilizing that, which is why women are solar in nature. And men, they have their thing is like pointing the opposite direction. So it's the south node is the horseshoe that faces up. And so they're like separating themselves from all of that energy that could be coming to from the sun to interact with the earth, the moon. Um, they're not really involved with that. They're just following what moon is. So um, the way that I realized that Jesus was a winner entity was I thought about all of the characteristics, not what people told me, but when I read the story, and looked at the different versions of the story and how they describe Jesus. And the more I read the stories, the more I said, this doesn't really sound like the sun. Number one, the sun is always there. So one thing Jesus said is, the poor you have with you always, but me you have just for a time. The sun does not, the moon doesn't go retrograde either. The nodes do, but the actual moon itself doesn't go retrograde. But the moon has a dark phase. So the light of the moon is not with us always, but the light of the sun is. And if you can't see it, the sun is still, but that's not the case for the moon because of the shadow. The moon is sometimes that would be a new moon. So I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. That's the quality of the moon where you're sometimes you're here, and when you're here, you know giving it the best shot that you can with the energy you have, and then sometimes you're not here. That's really that's what Jesus did. It's specifically the 3 days in the grave, because if you know anything about the new moon cycle, it literally is a 3 day window. You have, it looks like it's totally dark for 3 days, and then the crescent of the moon comes back and it begins to increase in light again. But this is every single month, so you have this whole concept of resurrection and rebirth that is literally occurring with the lunar phases every single month. Now if you're a female, you don't really have to worry about this as much because you go through luteal phases with your cycle. And so when you shed the lining, whatever, that is the same thing as it being a dark moon. That's literally the removal of that. And so like you females experience this internally. Males are governed by the moon. They only can experience this if they follow the moon phases, which is why the lunar mansions and all of this stuff is particularly for men, because they just don't have access to that cycle without an external force because they don't give birth. And so but because women do give birth, we are naturally going to be creators. We don't have to really, we have to focus on what we're creating, but it's not really that difficult. But as a male, if you follow along with the moon cycle, you will be much it'll be you to be in position. And I look at like when people do um along with their astrological things, you look at what phase when you were born. And technically when you have your first menstruation as a woman, you will actually probably menstruate the same cycle. So I times in the cycle, um you should be this and that, and work like that. When was the person born in the moon cycle? That's what's going to be natural for them, because again, when you were born, that was not the first crescent, of the moon. That will be starting the cycle. So technically, it should be close to the moon phase the moon was in when you were born, 3 days out or so. Not that anybody really tracks it like that anymore, but hypothetically, that's how it would work. So it's the same thing with men. You have to look, and on time and date, you can look it up. where was the moon when I was born? What phase was the moon born? And so if you look at that, like, and see what phase the moon was in, you could actually, that as your foundational point, and a precise 28.4-day cycle that you can manifest with. And so this is another type of manifestation, starting from when you particularly enter planet, going around the whole cycle, feeling those energies. Another thing about Jesus, emotional. Like he was extremely emotional. He was, one day he was okay to the temple, they kind of selling, no problem. He goes into the temple the next day, he's turning over the tables. Kind of crazy. Like, that's a very emotional response where you could have done different, but he's just so angry he did that. And how many times did Jesus say, how long must I suffer with you, reckless, ruthless, stupid generation? He always was saying stuff. I just think that people are not really what emotion is, and so they can't really see it like that when they read stories. But I've been on this journey of trying to figure out what all of these things are, and basically that's the conclusion that I come to. Very emotional energy to be what I mean, we have blood moon, so we don't have blood suns. The sun is yellow. It's sometimes white, but it's never sunrise sometimes in sunset, but typically it don't have blood. But we did have a blue in 2022. It was blood red. It lasted like 3 or 4 hours. So we do have that are like that. So again, what see with Jesus' story. So men want to lean into their masculinity. All I had to do was read the story of Jesus and look at how he responded to things. Another example of this is with the Samaritan, where he was. I've talked about this before, but let me set the stage. Jesus goes to a watering hole, like a, a well. Okay, that's what we call it. He went to a well. Now, anything about this particular culture, you typically, or just in general, like if you're a 80s or 70s baby, you will understand this. Typically, you would go to the well in the morning. Why? Because that's when the water would be cold. It's the same reason why if you're a fisherman, you go fishing at dawn because the water's cold, the fish are at the top water. So Jesus did not go in the morning. He went in the middle of the day. Now, if you go to a well in the middle of the day, you have nothing to grab water. So you're already like looking crazy because you're sitting at this well. You're clearly waiting for someone. And so what happened was the Samaritan woman, her name is Saint Fotini. We recognize her in the Orthodox pantheon. But so she comes up to the well. And now the reason why she came in the middle of the day and the regular people did not in the middle of the day is because she was an outcast. She was these people talk about her when she, if she came to the well in the morning, everybody would be looking at her. Thank you. Looking at her, talking about her, asking these weird questions, saying, "Ooh, what you doing here? What you into?" All of this stuff. So to avoid all of that, she goes to she goes in the middle of the day. Then she don't have to worry about nothing. So Jesus knows he's waiting for a person coming to this well that's basically like an outcast. And so he comes to the well, and here comes Saint Fotini, and he asks her, him some water. And she says, well, just get your own. Like, I'm a woman. You're not really supposed to be talking to me, because he was a Jew. And so the Jews had their own way. They ostracized anybody who did not agree with their particular way of operating. If you weren't culturally the same as them, they really didn't even recognize you as a human, which is why they would call her, Saint Fotini, a Samaritan woman, even though she was clearly one of the 12 tribes, because she knew the prophecy, which, as you go through the story, so her, with her husband. And she say, I don't have a husband. And he says, what about right? Because you got 5 husbands. And whoa, he read her the riot act. Because that whole thing of multiple only, I mean, this is probably something we could talk about too. There's certain cultures where women are for sale. And there's certain cultures where women are not for sale. And so the Jewish culture, especially in Jesus' time, the women were not for sale. Like, no, the women were failed, which means they had to maintain their virginity until they got married. That was the price that was being paid. They were paying with virginity and their quote unquote purity, which is why there's this huge push for the understanding of Mary being a pure vessel, because you had to be a pure vessel in that culture in order to have any value. And that is evident in this story with the Samaritan woman, because according to even her own culture, you only had value if you were a quote unquote pure vessel. And so because she had multiple partners, and that could mean anything. That could mean literal long-term relationships, that could be just sexual partners, that could be children. And I think with her story, it's several things going on. Um, it's a few different things going on. So the fact that Jesus said that to her face, is evident of what do men do. Hey, they're gonna tell you the truth about the situation, no matter if it hurts or not. They're just gonna tell you the truth straight up. And that's a masculine trait. It's a trait to kind of beat around the bush. Like she said, well, where's my you're not supposed to talk because I don't have my husband here. Like, that's a feminine trait. Again, very feminine, just to say, look, let me protect myself because I know I shouldn't be interacting with you in the first place. So let me at least put on this front like I'm not person who has this sin. And that's and so when Jesus said that to her, that, oh, you have 5 husbands, she said, could this be the case? Because they all knew the prophecy of the Christ. That's why I said she had to be one of the 12 tribes, or affiliated by blood or marriage, because she knew the prophecy. You wouldn't know that prophecy if you weren't a part of the tribes. But if you were a part of the tribes, it would have been passed down to you from David. So you would have known it because it's in the Psalms. So that's how you know. Because again, as I mentioned before, prior to Jesus, there was no way to change your religion. Like, whatever religion born as, that's the religion you died as. There was no conversionism. And for anybody, nobody had a method for conversion. And I talked about that when I talked about the story of Ruth and how extraordinary her story is, because prior to her, no one had ever converted into being a Jew. And basically, she converted. And it was something that was unheard of. So they didn't have a method for this. This is the gap that Jesus filled, that a lot of people don't understand because they don't do the research into these stories to understand why they're so important. Like, for example, in the whole Bible, there's very few stories of women. One is Esther, the other is Ruth. Why is Ruth's story so important that would be in there? And until you read it, you would just think, well, she was just no. There was no conversion. So the fact that she was she followed Naomi back and literally said, your God is going to be my God, and I'm going to be with you until the day you die. Unheard of. No, that was not a thing. So Jesus made this whole conversion thing for people to have the opportunity to leave their foreign gods, put away their idols, and worship the creator of the universe instead of all of these different foreign gods. Because again, what you were born into is what you were cursed, or you were assigned to that god. And so basically, at the whim of that god is how you were held. And with Jesus, he literally he broke that, like that chain of all of the people being forced to die with the God that they were born with. Now you have a method, a path for undoing that. So that's another thing that's masculine energy, forging a path, setting sail, setting a new trend and a new habit. Now, mind you, Ruth did it first, but Jesus is in the bloodline of Ruth. That's another reason why it's mentioned. Ruth is in the bloodline of Mary, I believe. So Jesus in the bloodline of Ruth, which is why it's important to mention he had this in his blood from his ancient ancestor Ruth. This whole concept of being able to convert, which again, like I said, was impossible. And so when Saint Fotini, the Samaritan woman, said this, okay, could this be the Christ? Then she went back. Now, mind you, this is a person who is a flawed person. Everyone knows she has had multiple partners, and that is frowned upon in their culture. Okay, so this is a culture where your women are for sale again, because in cultures where the women aren't for sale, and I actually was not looking into this specifically, but I was reading PBR's book, Pascal Beverly Randolph's book, Sexual Magic, and I had a question about a particular phrase that he used in the book. And so I was like, well, where does this come from? So I just, went on to archive just to look at what this phrase meant, which is Mahi Caligula, which is do work. And I found over, I don't know, 200 books that all are, I'm assuming, based off PBR's work called Joy of Sex. And what they did is they went into, again, the understanding of culture is extremely difficult. They went into different cultures and they found out that some of the women, they could have interact, there was varying different rules about women having sex before marriage based on cultures. In a great deal of cultures, the women were for sale. So that means the women could only get access to their dowry once they married. And especially in a lot of quote and literal African cultures, the wives and the mothers of the person she was marrying would do these extremely explicit acts to the woman who was supposed to be marrying whoever, the son or whatever, um, to make sure that the woman was actually a virgin. It's really gross. Like those women for sale because they were trade deals. Like, okay, I trade you this piece of land and this access to this water hole, this, cowrie shells or whatever in exchange for my daughter, and then we'll have a mutual agreement. So they want to make sure they was getting prime real estate. So if they were told that they had this virgin daughter and this daughter wasn't a virgin, that would be a problem. So it's just gross. And then on the other side, especially in the Americas, and which the few cultures that they did study, and a lot of the Polynesian cultures, it wasn't the same. It was like, okay, the women could go around, have boyfriends, do whatever, see if they like the man, all of that. See, if they wanted to live with them. None of that stuff mattered until the woman was engaged. Once she was engaged, she stopped having any type of relations with other men. Not for sale because they married for love. They didn't marry for some dowry or some, whatever they was going to get once they were married. They married for love. So you have two totally different cultures. And the Bible is not written for people from the culture where marriage is not for sale. So this is why there was a lot of mind control that was done, especially black people in this country. Especially in the 1900s. Prior to the 1900s, again, we were already Christians. They bought this new Christianity from the Pope because they were trying to get our people under control. So they just went off on this whole like. And so I'm really familiar with this because when I was a young person, especially around the 2000s, there was a lot of teen moms. And so they had this whole big thing about women be pure, like, and doing like rallies basically to get teenagers to agree to not have sex, all this stuff. It was in the media, like in the TV shows. We had a TV show called One on One. And the whole premise of the show was there was this black girl from Baltimore, and she didn't want to have sex before she got married or something like that. And literally the whole show is like basically about her turning down all these dudes wanting to have a boyfriend, but then as soon as they wanted to like have sex, then freaking out and basically deciding she was like gonna break. It was over the top propaganda. Let me just put it that way. It was over the top propaganda, but that's because they're trying to get all these people to buy into this whole concept that was for sale. What's the result of that? This feminism you have a result of all this mind control and programming done to women to say that your virginity has a price on it, and so you should really keep it until you can get that. And I know lots of women especially on Twitter, who are in this belief, and I feel because that's not how it works. You're supposed to be with somebody for love. And if you're with somebody and it doesn't work out, does that mean that you made this huge mistake you could never overcome? No. That's insane. But this is a result of this kind of behavior. And the way that this impacts the masculinity is it forces men to be pimps. Instead of you, like, and this is also tied into Jesus too, because what did he say? He told Judas in the Testament of Judas, he told Judas to sell him, not to sell him, to turn him in to the priest for free. Take any money, right? Listen, this got to be freely I have given, free I will give. Don't take no money from him. What did Judas do? He set up a toll booth. He was like, hey, you gotta pay me for this, man. And they gave him what, 30 pieces of silver, and he turned in Jesus. And Jesus figured it out and was like, you mess up the whole thing. Now they're gonna think it's okay for men to set up a toll booth as it relates to sacrifices that they make for humanity. And that's the case. Men supposed to toll booth. They're supposed to just be rewarded for their actions, their activities. And it's not that it messed everything up, but it just added this layer of confusion that most people can't explain because they don't want to talk about the difference in cultures between those people who have a price and those people who don't have a price. They don't want to talk about that. And so back to the Samaritan woman, when Saint Fotini went back to her people and was like, hey, you guys need to come up here. I was getting some water from the thing, and he told me I had 5 husbands, and I think he might be the Christ. That was literally the whole statement. And everybody was like, how would he know that? Like, again, how do you look at a woman who's covered, because it wasn't about covering in that day? She was covered. How would you look at a woman who was covered and tell that she had all of these parts? And so what ended up happening was they all went up, and all of these people started following Jesus. And it was her testimony that convinced them, because they didn't talk to him at first. They only talked to him after her. It was her and her testimony of what was said to her, because he said he could give her the living water, and it was her testimony to her kin that convinced them to actually convert. And so this is how men are. Like, men attract, like, they put them in a place. Masculine energy is an energy that puts themselves in a place to attract the results that they want. It's a very attractive energy, but you have to be in the right place at the right time. And then you also have to be willing to say certain things to get a very specific response. Like you can't really say stuff that you don't already have the answer to, the knowledge of. You have to be really, like, you have to be intuitive. And again, that intuitive nature comes from the moon. That's where intuition, because the moon controls the waters. Our body is 75% water. And so if you are tuned into that lunar energy, then you will be able to heighten your intuition so that you'll know which woman, if you're trying to pick a woman or if you're just trying to manifest, you'll know what thing to do at what time to get that result. That's like the in this instance, the moon is really designed to help men successfully navigate their masculinity. But if you think that masculine energy is from the sun, you totally miss out on um, this wealth of knowledge that's waiting for you. And it really doesn't have anything to do with astrology, because you can count the days of the cycle. You don't have to, because one thing I'm circling back to with the astrology is that we're already bound to the astrology because they issued us a birth certificate and put our names on it. So we're already bound to astrology in a sense, but we don't supposed to be bound to that. It's supposed to be a helper, not a binder. And so the only way to remove that as a binder is to find other tools of time to work with. And so one of those cycles of time is the lunar phases, and literally from one day to the next. So that's a totally different, like, it's a different way of thinking, but it also like puts separation in us and astrology, since we know all the entities that they bound feel. We don't necessarily want to agree terms and conditions, but you have to have accountability. So that, like I said, that's why I've been working on the Zolkin, putting it together, getting it really tight so that it will explain to people how to operate sort of within the realm of the astrology without the complexity of the astrology. So what does that mean? In there's something called lunar mansions. So each day of the lunar cycle has a lunar mansion associated with it. And there's multiple ways of calculating the lunar mansions. And so the way I haven't really zoned in, now that I know that I'm looking for this for a masculine reason, which I couldn't really put my hands on before, is a little bit, I don't know, outside of my reach, right? Just to try to figure out what is the point of putting it together like this. Now that I have a better understanding, it'll be much easier for me to figure out which one is going to be the best. But um every lunar mansion has an entity assigned to it, multiple entities, honestly, but it has an entity assigned to it. And so you can look at that lunar mansion and say, okay, I know, like, for example, there's a lunar entity called Imrudu. He actually it with he has a sigil. The sigil is actually a symbol of the dove, as in the Holy Spirit descending onto earth. That's his sigil. And so if you make this sigil on a certain day, during this whole lunar phase situation, then you are able to basically have good luck. And so when you make this particular sigil, you can make as many of them as you want at the certain time, on a certain day in the lunar cycle. And that energy of that entity is tied into that sigil, and so you can make them and pass them out. You can, do it for your friends, do it for your kids, do it for whatever. I made a bunch of them, and I used, but mine was on the wrong date, so they didn't activate the way they were supposed to. But you can make a bunch of them, and you can just hold on to them, and then when you meet somebody who needs luck, like for example, I would make a bunch of them and give them out to homeless people because they need some luck. Like, you don't have to be begging in the streets, you really just need some luck. So what can I do to actually give you luck? I'll make a bunch of, put some like little or whatever in the bag, and then put one of these little things on a chain and tell them wear that, and you always have luck. And because they'll believe it, because I'm already helping them, I already am doing a lucky thing for them. They will believe that, and as they believe that, that actual sigil will actually on the energy so that they will have more good luck. So this is a masculine thing. Like, I happen to be a very masculine, feminine energy. So this is always why I'm thinking about this kind of stuff, but this is a very masculine thing to do, to actually not just give someone money, but give them some way to actually be successful. Like Jesus left them with the Holy Spirit. Now the Holy Spirit was already there because the Holy Spirit communicates with the planet with the solar flares. Because the Holy Spirit, as a female, as literally the daughter of the Creator, is residence within the sun. And so the solar flares are the Holy Spirit communicating with the planet. So it's not that the Holy Spirit wasn't already there. It was like giving all of the people a message that's like the Holy Spirit. Like, this is the energy he was transferring onto them. The image of the Holy Spirit descending. Now, did a spirit actually descend too? I'm sure, but just from to put it into practical terms where you could see why they would believe it, because what happened then, everybody, they all spoke different languages, but they all heard what was said in their own language. And so this is the whole thing, like, about the speaking in tongues and all of that. Like, the Holy Spirit should be able to interpret that for you. And so that's how a lot of these people are speaking in tongues, but the tongues they're speaking are demonic tongues. That's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to go people about that today, but that's how you can tell the difference. So as ritual where he literally delivered the Holy Spirit to them in the image of the Son, so that we would know, hey, when off a bunch of stuff, solar flares and all this stuff, we should be thinking that's the Holy Spirit descending to earth. What is she trying to tell us? What message should we be receiving from these solar flares? And that's another way that you increase your spiritual capacity, is just kind of getting into that. I just literally talked for 50 minutes with no break. Do you actually have a question? Something I should focus on. I can't think straight. I just
No, you
went
went,
off.
it was great, it was great. Yeah, yes, thank you very much. I will say your connection is sometimes a little spotty. Not
Oh
sure if it's
no.
the Wi-Fi or I mean, it comes through well, but it just there's times where it kinda spots. It's like it's kinda yeah, it's kind of,
Uh-oh.
spotty,
Oh
but
no.
obviously no, but I
Hello?
mean, I was able to get
Now it's
everything.
off.
Yep.
That is crazy.
But, wow, yes, a lot of great information. Definitely will be re-listening to this one to just,
Oh no.
take I've been taking some notes, but I will definitely take more after because obviously I was driving, so I couldn't take the notes that I normally do. Um, but okay, so you
Oh my
said
god.
what happened?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I cannot hear at all. Hello?
Hello? Okay. There must be some disconnection. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Yep. Hello.
Oh my god.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, and I can. I tried to turn my Wi-Fi off, and that was a bad idea. So I remember to turn my Wi-Fi off before, because I just did not hear nothing for like the last 3 minutes. I'll turn my Wi-Fi off before, because this Wi-Fi
Okay.
here is really weird.
Yeah, so you were spotty. I mean, we were able to hear everything, but there were parts where there was like spotty connection.
Okay.
But overall, yes, thank you. That was great. So you can hear me, right? You can hear me well?
Yes, I hear you. Yeah, yeah, you sound good.
Awesome. Okay. So you said the masculine is lunar energy, the feminine is solar energy. Um, so in terms of the moon cycles, um, if we know what cycle the moon was in as a man when we were born, how do we then start to piece together what that means?
So the easiest way to do that is once you actually find out where you were in the cycle when you were born, right? You would start to just observe the energy. Like, okay, get a moon calendar app because I got one like it's called the moon, and each phase of the moon, like what day, what number, what percentage, stuff like that. Just observe. First, the first thing is to observe and see. Do different things happen on different days of the phases. Like necessarily, you can start to see patterns. Let me just put it that way. You will start to see patterns. Like, oh, on this day of the moon phases, this always happens. On this day, this always happens. So the first step is always just observe the energy and see how you are interacting with the energy. Once you have a solid observation of the energy, it's about a 28-day cycle. Okay. The second 28 days, you could go and look up like the lunar mansions. And then, even though they're wrong, just follow along with them. The days on the lunar mansions. You can use the Arabic lunar mansions, or you can use the Chinese lunar mansions. They're not the same, but I haven't made a video going on to each day yet because it's a lot of information. And it's just too much information for one video. I don't even know how to present the information. So the Arabic lunar mansions is what I usually refer to because that has more detailed information, and it's a little bit closer to our culture than the Chinese lunar mansions. I mean, that's a better way to put it. So then just whatever lunar mansion day they say it is, which is usually the day of the cycle. So it'll say, like on my moon app, it's like day one of the cycle, day two of the cycle, day three. Sometimes you don't get a day one of the cycle. You get a 29th day, which is the first day. You have to first of all, you got to figure out what this thing actually looks like with whatever way you're going to use to track the cycle. Then, like I said, go into the Arabic mansions, and look at what they say is good for each day, and start to see where in your life you see that energy. So that's like another cycle. So then by the third cycle, which is the end of a quarter, right? Third cycle, you'll be able to figure out, okay, well, if I do this on this day, this is what will work. A lot of the main issue with just using these cycles is first just observing that they have an effect on you. A lot of people, they don't want to accept that these things have an effect on them. And so if you don't accept that they have an effect on you, then you can't really use them because you're not respecting them. Like, these are all entities that are very powerful entities. And it's not that you have to worship them, not saying worship, but you should respect them. And a lot of people, you know, they're affected by the moon, but they won't acknowledge that they're being affected by it. So just like with substance abuse, the first stage is acceptance. You know, I am affected by what the moon does. Let me figure out dot dot dot. Me, I'm way more affected by what the sun does. So I have to really hard to tap into whatever it is the moon is doing, is trying to do. Because even though I'm masculine in my like how I conduct myself, I'm much more tied into feminine energy. And so I have to remind myself that there's a balance. You don't want to be two in one and not the other. But right now, nobody is where they're supposed to be. So you kind of have to go overboard on like lunar energy, like again, like they did in that book, the Moonchild. They went overboard on lunar energy, so you kind of got to go overboard and then bring yourself back to the middle. Just like with the solar energy, went overboard on walking by the spirit and in the essence of the spirit. I went totally headfirst into feminine energy, and now I'm kind of like working my way back to the middle because feminine energy is like undying devotion, no matter what. It's like, you know, praying 7 times a day, fasting every single day. It's like lots of outward, um, lots of outward energy on being devoted to spiritual practice. Masculine energy is inner devotion. So you do it on the inside. You don't necessarily reveal to everybody on the outside what you got going on the inside. And I'm, like I said, I'm kind of balancing out. That's why a lot of stuff I don't like, this kind of stuff I don't have videos for, because I don't have a way to put it that's not going to make me go overboard on one side or the other. It's got to be presented in a very balanced way. And that's what the Zolkin that I've been talking about, that's what that is actually allows people to do, to deal with the energy in a balanced way. And so but yeah, that's first, you want to observe acknowledge the energy that you literally are affected by it. Then you want to kind of see how it plays out. That by the second cycle of 28 days, you'll have your observations from the first cycle, and then on the third cycle, then you want to look at the Arabic mansions. Then you can look at the Chinese lunar mansions, kind of see the difference. You should start to see the energy show up in a specific way so that you can work with it. So the and spirit intelligence I was talking about, that is in that ceremonial magic book by Franz Bardon. So he talks about the lunar magic from a quote unquote magician's perspective. Um, and I don't think it's all 100% correct, but it's correct enough for you to get a general idea of what the energy feels like. And also, if you're going to work with the moon, you have to prepare emotional, and most men don't like being emotional, so that's another thing. It causes you to be very very emotional, and so you have to really be like okay with that, because you have to be a pure vessel if you're going to work with any of these entities. Even the moon, like even down to the moon, you still have to be a pure vessel, which means if there's stuff that you need to purge, you need to deal with emotionally, baggage and stuff that you're holding on, you're going to have to let that stuff go, because the energy is all encompassing. Like just in general, when you work with any spirit intelligences, it's all encompassing energy. It's zero, is 100 or 0. Like literally, there's no like in between. The in between is when you balance the energies. But as far as like being filled with the energies, like you're not half filled with the Holy Spirit. Like either you got it or you don't. And that's literally how all of these energies are. You either got it or you don't got it. And you have to kind of be, it's especially for people who this is new to them, you have to be prepared for that. It's not necessarily the easiest transition from a society which tells you to hide all your emotions, be strong about stuff that doesn't matter, go to work and pay your bills and don't do anything fun. It's a totally out of balance society. So you have to work really, really hard to get into balance. Um, And so that means that there's things that you'll have to leave behind.
Awesome. And so okay, so you said you basically to get in tune with the moon, get prepared to be emotional. On the flip side, to get in tune with the sun, what would be like get prepared for what when it comes to the sun? Like what does the sun bring about?
Okay, so if masculine energies want to tap into that Holy Spirit, feminine energy, feminine energy is very regimented. It's really this doing this at this day at this time. I personally suggest either mantras or meditation, like series. The first thing, one of the very first things we did was we had a serious meditation timing. It was really serious. I told people pick whatever time you want to pick, but you got to be serious about it. So you have to take your meditation seriously. Meditation is just sitting and with your eyes closed and frequencies and all of that. Meditation could be working out. Meditation could be exercising. Meditation could be preparing certain meals, eating a certain way, because we're talking about the sun here. The sun is everything that gives life. So while meditation and sitting and thinking does give life to some people, for other people it's not like that. It could be, being serious about your creative passion, being serious about whatever hobby you have. You just have to be very serious about it, whatever it is, and you want to devote that energy to that thing. So not only did I tell people to get serious about their meditation, another thing that I did was I said 5 different psalms a day, like every single day, the same ones, but it was five times a day. I was praying and reading the psalms 5 times a day, to align myself with that dedication energy. Now I have really strong Saturn placements, so that was not really, this type of thing is not difficult for me. But if you're the type of person who has a difficult time, like setting a goal that doesn't have a point, like you're not doing this for something, that's another thing. With moon energy, you're gonna get like some kind of result. With sun energy, you may not get nothing. You may do all of that and then be like, I have no idea why I just did that for 30 days, for 30 years. I mean, you go and work a job, that's solar energy. People don't even know why they do it. It's literally solar energy. It's poorly used solar energy, but it is solar energy because you have to go, be on time, show up, this and that. Solar energy really reflects Saturn energy. And so that's how you would tap into solar energy. Be very, very serious about something. And don't, I mean, like I said, I recommend mantras, like, okay, like every day I'm gonna listen to, or I'm gonna do 108, of this particular mantra, because if you do, there's a mantra. What is that mantra? I heard a guy say this one time, that there's a mantra that you can do that will, for every time that you say it or listen to it, right, meditate on it, you add 9 minutes to your life, and you give yourself 9 seconds of time. So like the example he used of this was, um he said this mantra and he was driving somewhere and it looked like he was about to have an accident. So he quickly said the mantra in his mind, and it gave him 9 extra seconds to move his car out of the way of the accident. So that's why I like mantras, because they have all kinds of cool things associated with them. And you really can't go wrong with doing a mantra, especially to a Hindu god you feel like comfortable with. Like I always recommend Hanuman. Hanuman is a friend of the human. So I recommend Hanuman's mantra, but I can't remember that one that he did. But anyway, you can just pick whatever mantra, look into the Hindu gods, pick one that you like, listen to their mantra every day. They have videos on YouTube that's 108 times. Um, listen to it every day. and meditate while you're listening to it. Listen to it before you go to sleep or whatever. So that's how you connect with the sun. It's structured activity or structured meditation.
Okay, nice. Just writing this down. So, okay, so sun is structured activity and the moon is more of like an
Emotional
emotional.
activity.
It's really what are the fucking odds that society has it completely the opposite? Where
Of course
like
they do.
isn't it funny how they're saying, women are basically convincing themselves like, "Oh, the modern corporate world is not for me because it's too structured." And yet they're the ones that are actually like kicking ass in the corporate world. Because I mean, isn't the corporate world, at least structured wise, is aligned to the sun?
Exactly. The,
Whereas the man has been forced to be structured, and he is like having to essentially like debase himself because he's more of the moon.
exactly. It's part of that whole Willie Lynch,
Wow.
like, like they tried to do with the whole Willie letter, because if I didn't know what that was when I talked about it last time, it was a letter written by a slave master. His name's Willie Lynch, obviously, and he delivered this address in Virginia in 1776, I believe, or 1774. Or it might have been 1773. Anyway, it was like in the 1770s, right around the start of this country. And he, in this speech, he was now this speech was made on Christmas. And if you've ever been to Virginia in Christmas, it is extremely cold. So I'm just having my mind, where did he deliver this speech to actually? But anyway, I just try not to focus on the way they tell history too much, because it don't never make no sense. So he delivers this speech and he's telling a room full of other people who are owners of slaves how to get their slaves in line, right? And so they use this in the black community to pit the black woman against the black man and the child and everybody against each other. However, like most of their stuff, it didn't actually work. They had to do a bunch of other completely illegal cosmically things in order to get this one little piece work. So what they've done with that whole concept, when they saw that they really couldn't get it to stick with our people, is they put it on everybody. So it behooves you to go and read the Willie Lynch letter and really see what it says, because that's what you're describing is exactly what they've done to the whole world. They've put the Willie Lynch letter as a contract on the whole world. Although we canceled it, so it's canceled. But if you don't know that that's where that emulation comes from, then you're just wandering around like, why are they doing this to our men? Why are they doing this to women? Women are supposed to be in these structured settings. This is where they excel. This is where they flow. And it's crazy because that's another thing. Women can do this like with families too. Like my sister, she has 5 kids. Like run like a well-oiled machine. So it's not this. It works within corporate structures, but to run a household, this sort of discipline is also really, really valuable. So instead of women using that discipline structure to run their household, they're using it to run these people businesses. And so the business, the corporate, this goes
Wow.
into
Wow.
corporate magic. They're getting all of the benefit of that, which is the woman is supposed to use for their house. So it's really bad.
Right,
Like
right.
it's horrible.
So, if you were to show I mean, not even if, because that's exactly what you're doing in showing the way. Let's say in an aligned society, an aligned structure, what would the man's work responsibilities look like, and a woman's work responsibilities look like?
Okay, nobody wants to hear this from me because this is how I live my life. Nobody can believe it. Okay, is this is my life. This is how I live. I I do this work. Like I said, I drive a school bus, but my main business is being an entrepreneur. So I'm the one who goes out in my family and gets the money, and I take care of the house. and I pay the bills and I do all the stuff. I am the breadwinner in the house. Now, I also stay at home full time, so I'm sort of like in motherly energy too, but motherly energy is not necessarily my forte because I'm thinking about how to run the structure. So I can do it, but it's not like it's not my I would say it's not my thing because I like being around kids. It's just that it's not something that is like a natural like I don't really come off as a motherly type of person. Most people not to like little babies. Even though I am, I don't come off like that. It's just how I come off, okay? My old man, he does what he does. I don't care. He's more uh than I am because he's in tune with the moon energy because he's on the cusp between Gemini and Cancer. So he's more like mothering than I am. Like me, I tell my 18-year-old will tell you I was 9 or 8. I told her, I was like, yeah, you better figure out what you're gonna do because at 18 you're gonna have to go somewhere and get a job and do something. At 9, I didn't let her have I mean, she had her first business. We was running businesses with her at 8, at 7. So that's the kind of way that I operate. Like, how you gonna take care of yourself? Don't worry about if a man's gonna be there or not. You can have one, you cannot have one. But how are you gonna take care of yourself? This is how I function. And he's more like, oh, is their diaper dirty? Do they need more clothes? Are they hungry? He looks hungry. He looks hot. He looks this. And like, it looked fine to me, but again, this is again not my forte. I'm at it. I can do it. I got 3 kids. Obviously, I'm not a failure at that, but it's just not my thing. Him, hey, do what you do. He likes plants and guns, and I don't know. I just don't get involved in it. And if I need money, I say, hey, I need money for this, and he has money and he gives it to me. Like this is how my life goes. Like I'm not worried about, and I also don't be in his face. Oh, we got to go out and do this stuff. I don't because I like to go out and do my own thing. I'm very independent. Like I said, it's kind of like most of the time people say this is masculine energy, but this is actually feminine energy. Like I like to go out. I like to do my own thing. I don't really like to be around a bunch of people. I don't want to be worried about nobody. So this is how I conduct myself. I go and I do, and I don't really be in the midst of nobody. And if I have a car full of kids, then I'm going with a car full of kids, and we have a great time. If I go by myself, I'm going by myself, and I have a great time. I'm more so focused on maintaining the actual finances in the house, and I let him worry about you know the actual structure of the house. Like, is the house still standing? Did the trash go out? Like, are the dishes washed? Like, not that I make him do all of that stuff, but I have in my mind when I'm going to do it, and if it don't line up with what he wants, then he gonna have to do it because I already got a set schedule in my mind of how I operate. So that only works because I always been like that. Like I've never not been in that energy, and so it doesn't bother me or I don't have an opinion on whether a man is bringing X, Y, and Z to the because I have an at least list. I wanted somebody who had their own thing going on that wasn't going to be interfering with my thing because I just got too much going on in my mind to be having somebody telling me a bunch of stuff that about how I do my business that I know. Like I don't like to get involved with that. So I already function my life like this, and it's not something that most people can handle at this stage. Plus, my old man is like 10 years older than me. So he kind of already set in his ways. So I don't have to be like, oh my gosh, he's going to hit midlife crisis and then turn into another person. Absolutely not. He's going to be like this forever. And if I get tired of it, I'm also prepared to pack all my stuff and walk away. I don't care. So you have to kind of, even as a man, you have to be the type of person where if things are going all right, they're going all right. But if you get a weird vibe, you get a vibe shift, you also have to be prepared to walk away. That's the hardest part, like, of the whole thing, is for men or women to just be prepared to say, okay, we tried it and it didn't work out. Best of luck to you. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. Most people are so invested in the outcome because they don't have other stuff going on, honestly. If you have other stuff going on, you're not so worried about it. But most of the time people don't have other stuff going on, and so when things start to fall apart, they don't have anything else to lean into, and that's really a lot of where the problems lie. The second problem is money, but of course those are things that can be remedied, not with not too much work, but really, as a woman, being able to say, okay, I don't care what this man does, as long as he's not miserable, that's fine. And as a man, you have to be able to say, I don't care what this woman does, he's not committed to people being miserable. They want people to be unhappy because they're unhappy. So that's how you deal with whatever makes the person happy. They're supposed to be able to do it. And more than likely for women, it's actually structured going somewhere to work. Like, I have an office. I need a physical office to go to. Even though I've always had my office in my home and it works, I don't like it. I want a physical, separate place to go to because it will help me to separate this work from home. So when I come home, I'm not thinking about the work stuff. And that's what a lot of women need. They need that's why you have so many coach workplaces, work sharing places, because women really do better if they leave from the home and go to work and they don't have it all in one place. Whereas men, they got their shop, their whatever, they do everything in the house. My old man never leaves. Like, he just don't see no need to. And I'm whatever. I don't get involved in that because it's not, listen, men's business is not my business. I know about the masculine thing just to make sure. I have a son. I want to make sure that he is well rounded in his masculine energy, but I don't get involved in men's business. And that's another rule. Men shouldn't get involved in women's business and women shouldn't get involved in men's business. I have a hard stop on being whatever men are talking about, unless it's something that is a subject area I'm an expert at, like music or something like that. If they're talking about something and I'm not an expert at it, I'm just listening. I'm not trying to ask no questions. I'm not trying to involve myself in their conversation. I'm just going to gather information. And then if it's interesting enough, I'll go back and do some research. And then maybe I'll be able to ask a question the next time. Women should approach men as understanding that men are experts at what they're experts at, because the South Node is going to force you. So let them be experts at what they're experts at. And it's the same thing when men approach women. Men should understand that women are experts at organizing their life. Like, don't come in and try to reorganize a woman's life. You are going to make them crazy. And if you know anything about like abuse and stuff like that, that's one of the first things men do when they are going to abuse a woman, is they separate the woman from her structure. Usually it's her family, but it could be any other structure. They separate the woman from their structure. That's how you know you're basically about to be abused, because they won't let you engage in your structure life. You structured it. Women have a way that they are that need to be left alone, because it doesn't, it comes from sun. So you telling me to do my time different is like telling the sun to stop shining. That feels like. And for men, if you try to tell them what to be emotional about, it's like telling them to control the direction the moon spins. They can control that. They just love what they love. Hey, all power to you. That's why you have to find somebody you actually like. Like, people don't actually, that's a big problem. They don't even find people they like. They find people that are good on paper. They check the boxes. That's why I said I have a framework. My framework is Leave me alone and let me do my thing. I'm gonna leave you alone and let you do your thing. That's it. Everything else, as long as you have the capacity of doing that, you're pretty much like going to be good with me. But that goes for my friends too, because I can't have them interfering with me either. So everybody have to be able to understand that. Let me function, and if you don't like it or lump it, whatever. Just like the sun, I'll come around, but you're gonna have to give me a chance to. I, especially as a spiritual person, I'm connected with the sun whether I want to or not. So some stuff I have to do whether I actually want to do it or not. It's just the way that I'm wired, and it's the same thing with men. They have things that they have to do it, like whether they like want to or not. Like, I told a story about how I had to move out of my house and all of that. My old man likes plants. We've got a ton of plants here. Like, would you be in the middle of a place with just, I mean, there's nothing here, and yet we've got like a whole back porch full of plants. Like, it's just the way that certain things, I mean, some of them are mine, but I can't take care of them. I kill them. So he has to take care of all my plants. But there's some things that are, you just don't know why. You just feel called to do it in your spirit, and you have to do it. And so people have to understand that and respect that about each other. And that's what would be helpful.
Wow, wow, you every every time we talk, you blow my mind.
Oh.
I'm just I have well so now I know that the next topic that we're gonna have is gonna be specifically gender roles, both when it
Oh.
comes to the family, when it comes to
Oh.
business, because the business thing is a big one. I mean, you look at Elon Musk. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
all his CEOs or at least executives are women. And it's like the trend is heading towards women executives. So it's very important for us to understand how do we as men uh, focus on truly harnessing what we are best at, and then how do we as women focus on truly harnessing what we are best at. And what I love about how you've structured your life is that you've intuitively allowed the two of you to flourish in your energy.
Right.
And I think that's something that's so beautiful, because that's what is, I think, in many ways empowering you to do this amazing work that you've been doing and continue to do. I mean, to be able to what is it, kind of, I guess, destroy these contracts, right? To make them null and void. That requires a very strong family foundation. And if you were still following that old system, or if you were following that old system, like, I feel like energetically, that just would not be possible. It would not, because your brain would be so, like, mumble jumbled with the
Right.
bullshit. And I see it all the time now, especially now that you mention it. It's like women are trying to fit themselves in a box that they believe is what they want to be, which it's not, and men are trying to fit themselves in a box which they believe is what they should be, and it's not. And they keep ramming their heads nonstop, and they don't understand why it's not working out. And then when they do try to do what they are best at, it's like they almost feel ostracized, because it's like women are thinking that, oh, I'm being too manly, being successful in these structured systems. And the man feels like a failure because he's not succeeding in a structured system.
Right. It's really sad. It's really sad that they literally took everybody out of their element and made it impossible to get back to the proper element. Like, it's been very, very, but again, I've been like this life. So I really don't like, I don't know where it come from. This is just literally in me. So I have not had a problem with this. But I've also,
You're the timekeeper.
well, yeah,
I think has to do with being the timekeeper, because
maybe so.
if you don't have this set up, how can you tell the time?
That's a
Right? Like,
fact.
how can you
Yeah.
know the time if your whole life is, like, energetically disrupted? It just, you wouldn't be able to tell the time.
Wow. That's true. I wouldn't be able to feel it because I would be too worried trying to see, okay, I got this, whatever, or I gotta stay home and I got to take care of the kids and this and that. And it's, again, I don't have a problem with taking care of kids. That's not what I'm saying, but it would be thing I can think about. Whereas, I'm like most of the time, like I said, I'm kid free, not kid free, but I'm down 2 kids, mostly one for now. But right now, I'm down a kid for the summer, so it's enabling to like organize this stuff, really do some deep research without as many interruptions as it is when you have 3 kids around. So that's the whole family you're coming together to say, okay, this one has a job that needs to be done. Let's try to give her some space so that she can get this done. Now, it's been very difficult to get people to understand that I have to take a mental break from the kids in order to get this stuff done. And from what I understand in other cultures, like in the Caribbean, the family always had helpers that came in and helped do different things around the house, and that's what I mean are running the actual house. Like it wasn't the woman that was doing all the cooking, all the cleaning, taking running everybody. It wasn't one person doing that. It's kind of like she was managing it. So she would say, especially in like this is people always wonder what the royal family does, right? They're like, what do these people do? But you don't understand. Running a household is quite difficult. You got certain people who can't eat this, certain people who can't eat this. You got places you have to go. You have to make sure clothes are clean. You have activities you have to do. Plus, you have, if you have multiple kids, you have multiple sets of activities to do. Plus, whatever it is that you got going on with yourself, then whatever the husband has going on, you've got to be able to manage all of that and look flawless while that's extremely difficult, and it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. So people always look at rich people, they're like, man, what they do all day, they should be like breaking their like, no, if you imagine if you had all of these different things to try to organize, plus if you've got a 10,000 square foot house, there's no way you're cleaning that. Like there's no way you're cleaning a 10,000 square foot house by yourself. You have to bring someone in to help you with that. So that's another part of this whole toxic femininity is that you literally have to have help. They have made women believe that we would clean a 10,000 square foot house by ourselves every day and make it perfect for this is the 50s, the boomers, make it perfect when the man comes home, dinner is ready, and you've just basically been doing nothing all day. That's insanity. I know that for a 100% fact. Nobody actually did it like that, literally. And so if you did have a house that was like that, it was a small house, maybe 1,000 square feet. You can do that with 1,000 square feet. Can't do it with 10,000 square feet. You can't do it with 5,000 square feet and 8 kids. Not gonna happen. You have to have help. And so they have made women so afraid of asking for help. And it's only women without money because women with money, they get an au pair. They don't care about that. They're not even worried about it. They're off doing their thing. They got their au pair. They go on vacation. They bring the au pair with them. A lot of in DC they have a lot of Russian au pairs, but they have their help that is in there with them. Now in the black family, we would have grandmothers, aunts, or whatever. We would make it a family thing. But since they killed off so many of the older people, we have to rethink how we do this. Like my daughter said, my daughter said to me like 2 years ago, she was like, "When I have kids, you're gonna help me with them." I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" She is 15 and recruiting me at 15 to help her with her kids. All right, I can see where this is going. You know what I mean? But to me, that was a good sign because how many Gen Z are thinking about having kids? Not many, because why? All of their parents, the Gen Xers, and even some of the younger boomers, they don't want help with it. They want to go off and they want to enjoy their youth that was stolen from them. And so they're out here complaining about youth that was stolen from them. Meanwhile, this Gen Z is like, man, we need help with these kids. And they're like, I did it by myself. You can figure it out. And that's not the way you solve the problem. Solve the problem by saying, what can we do, as a community to help the people in our community? How can you get people to have more kids if they have the kids, nobody will ever just say, okay, look, this is what I'm going to do. Because this is one thing that I plan on doing. when I move. I'm gonna have a night. Parents want to do what they want to do. Drop the kids off. Y'all go out and have fun. I don't care because I like being around kids and I let them play. I keep an eye on them. We'll do some fun stuff or whatever. And then the parents come back and pick them up in the morning. Go ahead on what you do. Who even does sleepovers? I mean, they're very few and far between because people have too many rules. It's too much weird stuff going on. Like we have to this is like all the things that people say are signs of a low trust culture are not really the signs. These things are the signs of a low trust culture. Why don't we have sleepovers? Why is it's all of this stuff around sleepovers? Because people it's a low trust society. You don't know who's in the house with them, this and that, all of this stuff. You're just like, wow, this is kind of crazy. It was never like this growing up. When I wanted to go over somebody's house, I just went over there. It wasn't an issue. So there's things that we can do from this position of trying to figure it out that will actually be extremely beneficial moving forward as a community and as a culture. But we have to, like you said, start with figuring out what the gender roles are. And I I never felt like I was a good example for this because prior to this time, everybody always just said I was crazy. They're like, how can you have a man around who doesn't contribute? And I'm like, I don't want his money. So what do you want me to do? Like, I mean, you want me to take money from somebody I don't want his money? Like, I want to live a certain type of lifestyle only I can afford. And so, in order, what am I supposed to do? Wait to find. Not to mention the type of men who can afford the lifestyle I want to live. Would I even like them? Like, are they good people? Not really, actually. A lot of them have a lot of, they're totally out of alignment with their own energy. And that, like you said, I just had never thought about it from this position before. But yeah, if I was with somebody who was completely out of alignment with their own energy, I could never do this work because I would be always fighting against that out of alignment. It's one thing to fight against entity. Most people have entity attachments that they're not dealing with. It's a totally different thing to fight against somebody who is literally in someone else's energy. That's not even their energy. So not you can't even, how can you fight against somebody who's not in their energy? Like they're not in their own power. That's like trying to teach a 5-year-old how to flambe something. Like it's probably a bad idea. Like, or giving a 5-year-old a gun. I wouldn't do it because they're gonna if they can shoot it, they will. That's how difficult that would be. So I had never thought about that. That's really really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you just you. I mean, the thing is, every time you talk, I form so many connections. But what you just said fit so many different pieces of the puzzle that it's like I knew it. I knew there was something fundamentally off about like the gender roles, and I just didn't know what it was. And you laid it out perfectly. This is what is wrong. And the thing is, because we've been going so against our moon and our sun, like we can't even find the balance.
Exactly.
Like it's because it's like if a man is tied to the moon, but he's continues to try to be the sun, like he can't be the sun because he doesn't even understand his own moon. But
Right.
if he begins to fully embrace his moon, then he could start to fully embrace his sun. And
Exactly.
vice versa, obviously for the woman. But we're so down bad that like we don't even know our own energy.
Yeah.
And that's what's so insane. And it's like, as you said, you can't find other people that are in this. It's very rare to find people that are in this flow. So it's like you're just alone to fend
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful what you are doing, and also what you're sharing in this, to be able to magnify this, to let other people know, like, it's okay to be in your energy. And as you're more in your energy, that's where things become effortless. It's not
Yes.
supposed to be so fucking hard. We're
No.
not supposed to be out here working like fucking peasants. We're out here supposed to be working and living as divine beings, but that requires us having to let go of what the system like continues to shove down our throats. So I mean I applaud you, and really I'm just so grateful that, like, it almost feels like talking twice a week is not enough because you are just filled with so much information, and you're transmitting it into those that listen, but in particular in this scenario, you're transmitting it to me, and then by me digesting it, I can, like, push it out
Exactly.
into the world.
Exactly. But that's a feminine thing. The feminine thing is it's not me that's supposed to be in the front of the room screaming at the top of my lungs telling people, "Hey, this is how we're supposed to live." It's supposed to be the men who learn it from their mothers. Okay, so this goes into my tarot spiral. In a tarot spiral, the order of the pips is queen, knight, king, page, or princess. Every princess becomes a queen. Every knight becomes a king. The queen sets the standard, sets the tone for what the knight learns how to do. The knight turns into king, and he then tells his daughter what to do. It's a cycle that should flow effortlessly, and the reason it doesn't, because again, everybody is so far out of their energy. They are trying to just grasp at whatever society has told them is the proper thing to do, but it doesn't work. So, like, one of the issues I have in my house is I don't care if my daughters are super extra quadruple clean. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, I want them to be focused on, hey, as a female, you need to be out here, figuring out how you're going to make your money, how you're going to set your life standard, and how you're going to live it, and all of that. If you need help cleaning, you just hire somebody to clean. Like, that's my mindset. But the masculine energy, especially if you're hyper focused on cleanliness, you're not going to necessarily understand that. So that's a constant, like, battle. But because I'm not in the financial position to, like, physically explain how this thing would go, trying to say it with my mouth sounds nuts. Like, they don't need to learn. They just hire a cleaner. Like, why wouldn't they just hire a cleaner? That's impossible to say to somebody. Like, who can't men have to actually physically see it, and women don't. Like, we don't have to actually physically see it to know that it's going to show up. So that's also, like, again, the visionary nature, the solar nature of women is to set the vision as big as possible. Women are supposed to be living, dreaming the biggest dreams they can possibly have. And men are supposed to take the part that they see themselves fit in, and literally turn it into long money. Like, that's how it's supposed to work. Like, the women create the structure, and the men take the piece that belongs to them and turn it into something that is going to replicate. Sometimes it's just children, just have a bunch of children, and really teach them this core operational capacity. But again, if everybody is all out of whack, then you can't do it. Like, another thing that I did that I have 3 children. I have 3 different baby fathers. People are always talking about, oh, well, women should only have one child's father and this and that. What my kids know, especially my girls, important. If you are having a problem with a man and he's not treating you in a way you feel you're supposed to be treated, you need to pack your stuff up and leave. They know that for a fact. They probably won't do what I did, but the standard had to be set where I won't allow nobody to me any kind of way. At some point, I got to get up and rock, and that's the standard. Like, not because other than that, what did the boomers say? You stay with somebody for your whole life. You see them in their 80s and 90s, and they do nothing but argue. They don't love each other. There's no sentimentality, friendship, or anything like that. It's just sheer obligation. I don't do obligation. I'm obligated to my children to an extent. They start acting crazy, I will de-obligate myself, especially after 18. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna treat me any kind of way you want to. Like, I don't let nobody do that to me. And so, to me, for me, that has been a primary thing, because a lot of women just let themselves get ran all over. And then when the man is done, that's when they leave. No, 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 no. I've never waited for a man to be done. When I'm done, I'm out the door. It's time to go. I don't care. And that's just the way that I am. But that's a really another whole part of it. Like just being as women, we have to be willing to set the standard and not accept anything less than the standard. We have to be reasonable. You have to be reasonable, but reasonable is it's just standard respect. You respect me, I respect you. Everything is good. When we get into the realm of disrespect, which is black or white, there's no gray area in disrespect. Either you're disrespectful or you're not disrespectful. We get into the realm of disrespect, then it's time to you know exit stage left and go on with life and find the next person. That's the thing. Like they've told a lot of women, oh, no one's gonna want you, especially me. They're, oh, well, you already have 2 kids by 2 different fathers. Who's gonna want you? Yeah, right. Like, do you know my chart? Have you seen my chart? At this time I didn't know my chart. I knew me. I was like, I've never ever. If I want to find somebody, I would find them. It's really not a problem because I'm a good person. Again, I'm a good person. I just don't take mess in my life. And so you in my life, you not being a messy person, hey, I don't care because I have my own life. Again, this all goes back to really being secure in your energy. And it does start with even though you're not down to your astrology chart, you have to know it because those are the points where they apply pressure. If you don't know what's in your chart, they apply pressure where where your wounds are, where minutes are, where whatever they try to apply pressure to the areas. So if you haven't done a full self review of yourself, you are wide open for somebody to take advantage of you. And you have really, I mean, that's another part of it. Serving the solar and the lunar energy is a stage that comes after you know who you are based on what's in that chart. Because then those things can be used as weapons against you. Because if you don't have an understanding of that, you could be well within your energy. That's what attacking the chart. So because they don't understand lunar energy and the solar energy and how it works, it's way too personal. But they know that chart. So if you got a mother wound or you got a relationship wound or if you got like some other kind of, self-hate, whatever wounds you have, they're going to attack those first. They know if you have Saturn in, Aries, then this is way this person is going to act, so on and so forth. Like they have records. So you're not it would be bad enough if you were just like if you weren't in their system and they couldn't attack you. But because you are in their system, you are open for these random attacks that kind of come from nowhere. And it's not like it's a person, it's the system. Like it's just always like working up against you so that you can I could give a really good example of this, but it's always working up against you so that you can't actually get to that place of being able to just stand in your power as your north node energy, as your lunar energy, or as your solar energy. That can prevent you from getting into your power. Now, there was a time when they didn't have this place locked down as far as this astrology so much, but we don't live in that time. Because we live in a time where they have it locked down, you really got to get that part first, learn what they're going to be throwing at you, what the system, what the matrix is designed to throw at you, and then you can master the matrix. As a matter of fact, this is what we figured out today, that this whole Zolkin cycle, you can go from day 1 day 216 of Zolkin cycle and achieve galactic freedom. Now it's hard. I can only imagine for how hard it would be for someone who is being attacked by the system. But in 260 days, you can be totally out of there. You can be on a total. You can have galactic freedom, and but again, it takes like you got to know yourself. Have to deal. It's like layers. Like you can't just jump to the top. You got to really be working every layer, clear every layer. And as you, I mean, because we're adults. For children, the best part about this is if you do it for yourself, when you have children, you won't even indoctrinate them into that system. They'll never have to go through that system. They won't know that system. So, what do I mean by that? So, you give birth, you can give your child a name in the hospital, and a month later, you just change their name. And then when they turn 18, change their name again. Like you just have a system of, okay, this thing might work on you until you turn 18, but once you turn 18, you change your name, you totally erase. That's why God always gave people a new name. They had a name, they gave them a new name. And I kept thinking, why would God always give somebody a new name? It's because all of the sins that is attached to that name is now forgiven. It's gone away. You got a new name. That's why in the Orthodox Church, you get the name of a saint. And so that saint is you are embodying the best energy of that particular saint when you use that name. But if you are somebody, because another thing they tell women is, give your name up, take the name of the man. Well, wait a minute, you don't know what is on that bloodline, so why would you take that name? Additionally, you don't need to keep your name either. You should really take a new name, like a totally separate name that has nothing to do with the old name for yourself or the old name for the man. You should take a totally new name. I mean, you can change your name to whatever it is. It's particularly the woman. The man, it doesn't matter as much, but particularly the woman, you can change your name to a whole new name. That has nothing to do with either name. Take the family name. It's all kinds of things you can do. Like I haven't thought through all of this now that I'm thinking about it. What would be the best strategy? But we have to get thinking on how to prevent the children from having to go through this. So me, I just had one goal. My daughter's gonna know that when it's time to go, you pack your stuff up and you leave. You don't worry about whatever is going on. Don't worry about that. You get yourself out of the situation if you feel uncomfortable. Because a lot of women stay in situations, Cassie, where they feel uncomfortable because there's money involved. So you don't want to be like that. And they're always teaching women to make money their God. And we don't that's not natural. It's totally unnatural to live like that. And so we have to the better we get at this now, less likely it is that the future generations will have to engage in it at all.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, again, I am so grateful because you are on one. And not just today,
Oh,
like you are
I appreciate it.
on one every single time. And but this one, I mean, all the spaces have been spectacular. Bar none. They've been really, really fantastic. But this one really, I feel, has like dissolved blockages in society that you speaking them out loud, even to just the small audience that we have here, and obviously for those that will listen later, like something big just shifted.
Wow.
And it's very exciting that like we are here to experience because you just spoke it into reality. You just spoke your life, what you've been doing into inspiring millions upon millions of families to start to do the same because it's not working. It's just
Right.
not working. Like
Right.
there's families that don't have another year left. They don't have 5 years. They don't have 10 years to continue to live in the hell that they've been living in. What's the solution? I don't see there is no solution out there, and you just basically spoke it out loud, and I felt the whatever pillars still existed in the old system for that misaligned way, it just broke. It just broke.
Wow.
It just fucking collapsed. So, congratulations, because that was really big. How much more time do you have? Can we talk for
Oh, I
another 10
probably
minutes, 20 minutes?
we can do a few more minutes, like 10 minutes. Let's do 10 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to take more of your time. But I just wanted so next time we'll do another one on gender roles, go a
Okay.
little more in depth on that one. I guess after that we'll do toll booths because we obviously didn't technically do anything on toll booths, which is fine. I think we had to go through this first to begin to
Yeah,
really understand the
you
toll booth
can't even
because
understand the toll booth until you get throughout. First of
right.
all, you don't even know you set up a toll booth because you don't even realize you out of alignment with the proper energy. So you
Mm-hmm.
think that you're just being a
Mm.
normal person, but you've actually set up a toll booth. Like you can't. And I like what you said. It's like it literally brought down whatever pillars they thought. Oh, these people don't have a solution. No, I have a solution. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Like I have been really, really thinking about how do you solve this problem. I have kids. I don't want my kids to go through this problem. How do you solve this problem? I spend a lot of time focusing my energy on creating a solution. And part of the solution, obviously, is money, but that part will be dealt with. If people just knew their energy and really they just lie so much about the solar and the lunar energy that if people could just get into the solar and the lunar energy and really just feel it and now is the time to do it because we're in the first quote. Well, actually, we're at the 12 o'clock. Well, actually, we're now at 1 o'clock, but we're in the top half of the chart. We're in the time when things are being initiated. When the clock is literally it just hit 12, and we're moving forward from there. This is the time to be emotional. I should mention that you don't have to be emotional all the time. This emotional from Cancer season all the way through the solstice or the equinox, the summer, the Cancer equinox to the Libra solstice. This is a time period emotional. And the other 3 quarters that have different energy that's going along with them. So now is really the time to allow those emotions to just flow through and to just be and to just be aware that they're there because you'll need that moving into the next part of the year. But this is the time of the year for this emotion.
Beautiful,
Otherwise,
beautiful.
I
So
definitely
just
wouldn't
just
be so emotional.
mm, okay, love it. So the last one was no, I guess maybe we could talk about it a different time. It was about just so that you know about it, but we could talk about it and the
Okay.
next spaces is the role that that woman, Ruth, I think it was, had like because that's very symbolic in terms of her saying like this is the savior, like this is Christ. Like there's it's almost like that shows that the feminine is able to legitimize the masculine in some way.
Yes, 100. Men cannot be legitimized except by women. Like, look at Obama. It wasn't Obama who legitimized himself. It was the grandmothers who was in the churches praying for him that legitimized him. It was his total capitulation. Same thing with Trump. It was the women for Trump that legitimized him. It was the women
Mm,
around him that's why this whole Epstein thing, them not handling well, is really it's really going to be what brings the whole thing down. And if you know that Trump is surrounded by women, all of these rich people are surrounded by women. What is the if it was one,
mm,
if it was two, one thing. They're all their top reps, all their top executives. They always have wives. Like even I won't say that, but they're always surrounded by women. I'll say this, except for Lindsey Graham, who doesn't seem to understand this, but everyone else manages to put some women around them. There's a reason for that. You cannot be legit. A man will not be legitimized by another man. Woman who speaks to their life and
mm,
says, "You are the one. It's you. Get it done." Not hard way or anything. It just every a lot of people have stories about their grandmothers, and usually it would be the grand would say to them, you're special when you grow up, and they always remember that. They never forget that. Like that's important, and it's
yeah, right.
totally like it's
Mm,
missed right now they took all these people with COVID. It's really, really missed.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take more of your time. This was fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope
Absolutely.
you have an amazing weekend. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we